Let me ask you something right out of the gate. Ever watch somebody pop champagne for their own victory, only to realize they just lit the fuse to their own disaster? No? Well, settle in, because I got front row seats to the most expensive cell phone you've never witnessed. The cast? Me, a 60-year-old snowmobile trail carved through Montana rock, and a woman in designer boots who really should have stayed in San Francisco. I'm not exaggerating. She filmed herself paving over my family's trail, posted it online like she conquered Everest, and grinned like she'd struck gold. What she didn't realize was the only jackpot waiting at the end of that stunt was her own financial ruin. Best part? She gift-wrapped the evidence for me. Makes you want to grab popcorn, doesn't it? Name's Garrett. I fix things. Engines that won't turn over. Tractors that gave up last winter. Sometimes even other people's disasters when nobody else wants to get grease on their hands. But there are some things you shouldn't have to fix. Like a handshake agreement your grandfather made after surviving World War II, so his family could keep a path open to the mountains. Dad passed in 2018 and left me 47 acres of Montana land. Rocky, steep, mean as a bear with a toothache. But it's mine, and along with it came a trail. Not just any trail. A snowmobile easement that winds from my property straight into 12,000 acres of state forest, the only cut through in 60 miles of granite and timber. My grandfather, Ezra, spent 5 years in the 1960s fighting to keep it open. No rifles this time. He had enough of those in France. But with lawyers' deeds and that mule-stubborn grit you only earn after burying friends for something bigger than yourself. Every winter, I wake to that low rumble of engines echoing off the cliffs. Snowmobiles humming through frozen air. That's peace where I'm from. Christmas mornings, we'd ride out together, breath hanging in the cold like smoke. Summers, I'd hike that same path with Granddad, learning to read survey maps under lamplight, his hands rough as pine bark. He'd say, "This ain't just about a joyride, boy. It's about keeping the mountains free from mountain folks." 40 families depend on that trail. Hunting, emergencies, just getting where they need to go. Without it, you're driving 3 hours around the range instead of 20 minutes straight through. That trail wasn't convenience. It was survival. Every January, we run Ezra's Run in his honor. Local tradition. Cold air, warm engines. Pride holding it together. Then Vivian arrived. Picture a corporate hurricane wrapped in a $2.8 million chalet, clutching a leather briefcase and wearing boots worth more than my truck. She relocated from San Francisco, high-powered attorney, who made a career squeezing people like me in courtrooms with polished floors. Took her 6 months to crown herself HOA president of Glacier Ridge. The improvements began immediately. Vivian hated noise, claimed my trail, lowered her property value, said she wanted to turn the area into a wildlife sanctuary, which in HOA language means private playground for wealthy hikers, locals not invited. Trouble drifted down from her heated driveway that fall, smelling like expensive perfume and entitlement. At first, she showed up with cookies and a legal pad, smiling about mutually beneficial solutions. I laughed and told her that trail existed before she knew how to spell property tax. She didn't appreciate that. 2 weeks later, I get a letter thick as a ribeye from one of California's most expensive law firms. Cease all trail use immediately or face $500 per day in penalties. Their argument? That my 1963 easement somehow evaporated under new environmental regulations. Total fiction. But when you throw enough money behind fiction, people start to sweat. Some families stop riding. The club froze up. Nobody here can bankroll a legal war against someone who spends more on landscaping than we clear in a year. Vivian figured we were too simple, too rural, maybe too backward to have kept paperwork. She miscalculated. My family's been saving documents since ration books. That's when she sent in her surveyor. I was welding a busted axle when a diesel pickup rolled up. Out steps a guy in a hard hat, planting stakes like he was mapping Mars. Claimed he was running an environmental boundary assessment. Translation? Looking for a way to carve off more land. For 3 days, he strutted around snapping photos, shifting markers, acting official. Thursday, I catch him driving stakes 15 feet inside my property line. Not a mistake. A deliberate grab. I asked for his license. Expired 2 years ago. His equipment looked like it came from a discount catalog. I called the number on his paperwork. Disconnected. In the Army, they teach you something simple. Use a fake badge to get somewhere you don't belong, and you're headed for a cold cell. That sparked an idea. I installed a trail cam inside a birdhouse. Motion activated. Cellular upload straight to my phone. Next morning, Vivian shows up, hands a surveyor an envelope thick enough to gag a goat. Says clear as day. Move the markers wherever you need to. These people don't understand property law anyway. Got it all. Her face, her voice, her cash. I sent the footage to the state board. They moved fast. The surveyor was staring at charges before he could fold up his bogus tape measure. Vivian's deed came under investigation. Her insurance carrier started sweating bullets. Local paper ran the headline, City Attorney versus Mountain Family, Round 2. Suddenly, HOA board members started whispering they were on my side. And when that fake surveyor started talking to federal investigators, things got interesting. Because Vivian wasn't just an HOA lawyer with expensive boots. She was tied in with a resort, development corporation, a maze of shell companies, millions of dollars in motion, all of it depending on forcing locals out. And still, she kept going. A week later, a notice gets taped to my shop door. 47 pages of so-called evidence stamped by the Montana Department of Environmental Quality. According to them, my trail had devastated rare ecosystems, polluted waterways, maybe even shifted the climate on its own. The photos showed erosion that any fool could recognize as spring runoff. Those endangered flowers? Zoom in close enough, and you could still spot the Home Depot price tag. Then the state inspector, Dakota, arrived. She looked like she was bracing for Chernobyl. Instead, she found a trail maintained better than most city parks. Hand-built drainage systems, native grass buffers protecting sensitive areas, clear signage keeping riders where they belonged. Where's the damage? She asked, honestly puzzled. I handed her 40 years of documented reports. Pre-existing use overrides new regulations unless you can prove actual harm. And then I showed her the flowers. Not only don't they grow here, they were plastic. She almost laughed herself off my property. But her final report did more than clear us. It exposed the truth. The environmental complaint wasn't about nature. It was about development. The survey data buried in her paperwork? Construction planning maps. Nothing to do with snowmobiles. Vivian Corner tried bribing Dakota. Then she threatened the university scientist who had approved our trail. Emails surfaced linking shell companies buying up hundreds of acres, all connected to a $15 million resort expansion. Only if our trail disappeared. That's when the local environmental groups turned on her. They apologized for being manipulated and joined our side. But she wasn't finished. Next came the Americans with Disabilities Act. She claimed our trail had discriminated against disabled riders for 60 years. Pay $2.7 million in damages or rebuild the entire route for wheelchair access. Imagine ramps on 40-degree slopes. You couldn't construct them if you tried. The problem for her? I knew the law. Primitive trails established before 1990 are exempt. You can't slap modern standards onto the past. And courts punish frivolous lawsuits. I called the local disabled veterans group. They mobilized like it was D-Day. She doesn't speak for us, one of them said. They crowdfunded legal fees in 2 days. The American Legion handed over their conference room. Vivian got desperate. Anonymous threats hit local business owners. Insurance policies vanished overnight. Private investigators lurked. Kids were questioned at school. Black SUVs lined Main Street thicker than morning coffee steam. But she made one final, fatal mistake. Her lawyers overlooked a single clause in the original contract. When my grandfather granted road access to Ski Lodge, he made it reciprocal. If they ever shut down our trail, they permanently lost the right to cross our land, which is a problem when every chairlift chalet and food delivery depends on our quarter-mile road. She wanted leverage. Instead, she handed it to me. One signature, and $47 million in resort investments would turn into a ski-shaped paperweight. So I waited, let them pour money into the season. Let them sell out the chalets. Let them book 4,000 skiers from Martin Luther King weekend. Let them grow arrogant. Then they poured concrete barriers across my trail, made it permanent. Every second captured on camera. Every move a contract violation. When they finished, I locked the road. That Monday morning, 4,000 guests woke up stranded on the wrong side of a mountain. Staff couldn't get in. Chairlift hung silent as a graveyard. The CEO stood in front of my road closed sign, asking what I wanted. Respect, I told him, and maybe read the contract before you bulldoze someone else's history. The sheriff showed up, federal agents, local news, even the FBI. Vivian was arrested for bribery and fraud. The resort collapsed into bankruptcy. Sold for pennies to a trust that restored public access. She got 3 years in prison, millions in restitution, all of it placed into a permanent fund protecting the trail. Funny thing is, all the lawyers, the threats, the money, it couldn't outmatch a single sheet of paper and a mountain family stubborn enough to read the fine print. In the end, we kept our traditions alive, honored my grandfather, protected the land for the next generation, barbecues, scholarships, local jobs, a victory you feel in your bones. So let me ask you, when someone tries to provoke you, to push you, to make you react, do you give them the spectacle they're hoping for? Or do you stand steady, stay calm, and let them stumble into their own trap? Ever had someone nearly destroy everything because they assumed you were weak? How did you handle it? Drop your story below. Let me know which side of this fight you'd stand on. Sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't striking back. It's standing still while they collapse under the weight of their own mistakes, while you hold the only contract that ever really mattered.